Come on, good afternoon, everyone. We certainly want to welcome you this morning, or this afternoon, rather, to our big vaccine forum. We're going to ask Reverend Apostle Paul, who's a youth pastor in our Christian church, if he would come forward and offer prayer so we can get started.
May we bow our heads. Father, this afternoon we say thank you for your goodness and your mercy towards us. Thank you for allowing us to gather together. God, we're here today because we don't know the truth, and we need to know the truth. God, thank you for every doctor here. Thank you for every nurse here. Thank you for everyone that's here that knows the truth, that's willing to share the truth. God, I pray for every listener, for every hearer, that they might know the truth and have the audacity to be changed. That this might charge us, that this might challenge us to do what it is that needs to be done in order for us to be safe and be healthy. Not only us, but our family. Not only our family, but our community. Not only our community, but our whole city. God, we love you and we thank you. God, this is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I'm Pastor Harris at the Baptist Church. I serve as the Secretary of the 10th Coalition of Protocol to serve the gratitude here today. I'm going to right here give it over to our MC for this program, none other than Uncle Boogie, amen, who is the entrepreneur of 104.9 FM. He is going to be our program over. He will take us through here.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're here for one purpose only today, and that is to make you aware of vaccines and the importance of vaccines. As a country, we've suffered the plague of 1912, Spanish flu, polio, measles, smallpox. The reason why we don't have these diseases today is because the vaccine is mandatory for anybody who is going to school. Was mandatory. Does anybody know what's in those vaccines that you're taking? Are you alive today? Does anybody have smallpox or polio today in the audience? This is some of the misconceptions we're trying to answer today. And we have an esteemed panel that's here to help us understand the importance of this trial that we're going through as a nation. It's a trial. The only good people are people who know they're sick, carry the disease, won't get checked out, and won't try. I've never seen a situation where people that know a vaccine will help them. They know it's out there, but they'd rather deal with COVID than be saved. The other responsibility of taking the vaccine is that you might not like the vaccine. You might feel your liberties are being infringed. But what if you do it to your child and your grandchildren? Who is the offender at that point? Whose responsibility is it to you at that point? As African Americans, I can tell you one thing, since I am, we have a history of being tried. Trials have been put on us through government programs. But that was then. We live now. Today is a new day. That was my great-great-grandfather's plan. But you know what? I didn't have representation on researchers. There was no researchers at that point that looked like me, that was on that board. With this vaccine, there are people that look like me that helped develop it. From a legal standpoint, the government can't make you sick because you sue them. They don't want to sue. Their first law is to work in the public's interest, period. they are liable for that. That's why we're here. On our panel, we have a esteemed panel that can explain the medicines and the reasons why we won't take a vaccine that can save our lives. And before I get close, we get to the southern governors who rather stand with the party over country. Who's the true patriots if they don't help themselves and the other people? I want you to think about that. The highest rate of COVID-19 or Delta variant is from the unvaccinated. Whoever promotes not to get vaccinated promotes death. That's a fact. Hospitals in Texas are overfilled. You can't even take a child and have a baby in Texas. They're turning you away. They have no room. There's nurses that are they're understandable. You break your ankle, you can't see. And you might be vaccinated, and you need help. But because somebody didn't take the vaccine, they took your bed, your doctor, and your nurse. Who's the patriot? We're here to change lives, change minds, and we have some people here that can help us. I'm going to get right to them. Dr. Lance Washington, Dr. Emily Thacker, RN, Miss Lisa Washington, and my mother's an RN. Let me tell you something. We can't have a doctor without RN. I tell you that much. That I do know. So I'm going to give it over to Mrs. Washington and let her inform you why we're here, what our purpose is, and why we're here to help you change your minds, as well as save your lives. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. We also have another doctor that's with us virtually, and that's Dr. Hawkins, and she is a new OB/GYN here in town. She's especially close to me because we are AKAs. Okay, so we are here today to answer any questions that you might have about the COVID vaccination. I am the Director of Minority Health Alliance of Howard County. There are 22 organizations like Minority Health of Howard County in this state. We are here to put on programs, health assessments, and various other things for health education. We target minority populations, but we do things like diabetes teaching, health screenings, health assessments, anything to do with chronic illness. Indiana has the unfortunate distinction of being usually in the lower portion of health outcomes. We want to change that. We want to be here as a resource for you and give some programs to help change that. So I am going to turn the mic over to my husband, Dr. Washington, and he'll give you some more information.
Thank you, Little Wife. My name is Ron Washington. I'm an internist here in town. My colleague and dear friend and is also a primary care physician. We didn't want to be here just to drone on and tell you probably what you already know, but I do want to, and we wanted to make this more easy going. Quite frankly, we want the three of us and Dr. Hawkins wanted to just be a resource. We're in unsettled times. I never thought I'd ever be in a situation like this in my career. The only thing I can think in terms of medical crises that are even potentially close to this was the AIDS crisis. And that was insane. And then there was the Alpha variant, what we went through a year and a half ago. And now we're here again, and I just cannot wrap my mind around it.
I'm here to speak to the facts. I'm here to speak to the science. But as a Christian, we need prayer. I cannot separate the two. And so, if anyone who knows me and all my patients who I take care of, I'm going to pray with you, and you can get a little bit of Jesus when you come into my office. And so, I don't deserve your accolades that Christ within me, but I see and I hear what you're saying. So that's first and foremost, that's what we need. When I give talks or even comments, just like I can take it 3 bullet points. And I've done, Emily and I have done 1,000 of these. But, I mean, we were just talking back, we literally in the last few weeks, once, and her husband, Chin, a good friend, he's also a permanent therapist, we've been banging our heads. Because I don't see why we shouldn't be up here. I mean, we shouldn't be, it's like trying to explain that the sun rises. It's trying to explain that your heart beats without thinking about it. Just things that are so obvious and so logical. So it's very, very, very difficult for us as medical personnel. Speaking specifically to the vaccine, it's safe. It's safe, it's safe. There's been no documentation of anyone dying from the vaccine. You're going to see stuff on social media that may say, you may hear, you may see a hear of second, third, and fourth hand, but nothing that's documented. So I sit here as a Christian and as a physician telling you that the vaccine is safe. Now, don't watch TV. This is red, this is blue, this is black and white, quite frankly, as in potential death or life. So there's no political affiliation here. I certainly echo the comments about what's happening, unfortunately, in Texas, in Mississippi, and in Florida. Mississippi, there are no ICU beds. There are no beds. There are no ICU beds. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't feel the impact of this because they're not us. They're not getting phone calls. They're not. I feel free to tell you, I've signed more death certificates in the last 6 months than in my entire career. And that's real. And with this new variant, the Delta variant, it's the young people. You guys have heard it a million times. And without breaking Hitler, you know what it's like for me to tell a family of a young man or woman under 50 without any pre-existing conditions. They don't have emphysema, they don't have HIV or any immune disorders. Health is a horse. Tell them that that patient is on the bed prone. I don't think you guys can appreciate that. We ventilated patients on their stomach. I didn't even think that was humanly possible. And tell them that I'm not going to get in the way of doing Jesus. Let's pray. Because that's all I can offer. You have no idea how frustrating it is. We have something that is for free, that is readily available, that can protect you. If you don't want to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your children. It's, so it's safe. Protect your fellow man. If you're a Christian, you're not getting the vaccine, I have an issue with it. I have an issue with it. I'm going to hand the mic over to. I don't want to commandeer the mic. I'm going to hand a mic over to my colleague for any comments she may have.
Thanks, Lance. Again, I'm Dr. Emily Backer. I'm a family doctor locally. I'm also the Howard County Health Officer. So I have seen all of this along with Lance and all of the physicians, nurses in this community. A couple things I want to point out. Again, the vaccine is very, very safe. If a lot of you have seen this data on Facebook and stuff about, there's been 5,000, 6,000 deaths from the vaccine, you have to realize where that's coming from. That's not correct. What it is, what that is data from something called the VAERS reporting system that we as physicians are obligated. Put it up. Okay. So we as physicians, when we give vaccines, we're obligated to report any adverse effects of a vaccine when we give it. So you could have heart disease. We give you the vaccine, 2 weeks later you have a heart attack. We have to report that. We may not believe that the vaccine may have nothing to do with your heart attack because you were already at risk, but we still report that. So and to be honest, people die every day. They die of multiple different causes. So if you look at everyone who's had a vaccine, which in this country is about 166 million people, many of those people will die, in the next month or 2 or 6 months after they get a vaccine. We still report it. Even if we don't believe that it is all related to the vaccine, we're obligated to report it because we can track that. And maybe there is a very, very rare side effect of a vaccine that we wouldn't pick up unless it was reported. And actually with COVID, we are now, because it's under emergency use authorization, we are required to report any adverse side effects. With other vaccines, there's categories that we have to report, but they're limited to what they think are actually due to the vaccine. In this case, we report everything. If you die in a car accident and you got a COVID vaccine 2 weeks before, that goes into that reporting system. So, and what the news organizations have done is they don't understand that that's how that works. We're used to it because we use it, but so they've falsely reported those $4,000 or $5,000 deaths are due to the vaccine when they just happen to be deaths that occurred in people who had gotten the vaccine. So it's complicated, but when you understand what we put into that system, you can kind of understand where that comes from. Also, I do want to say the vaccines are still very effective. We keep hearing about these breakthrough cases, and there are going to be breakthrough cases. We expected some. Again, when you have 166 million people vaccinated and it's 95% effective, 5% of people are still going to get it. And when you have that many people vaccinated, you're going to have breakthrough cases. But right now, 95% of all people hospitalized with COVID are unvaccinated. If you are unvaccinated, you're 24 times more likely to be hospitalized, and you're 25 more times likely to die of COVID if you're unvaccinated. So the key to realize they're safe, they're effective. So turn it over if you ever.
I just want to echo on a couple of things. Say it. Okay, no. Just a couple of things, and then I'm going to see if my colleague, Dr. Hawkins, has any comments. Two things. Look at the source of information. I didn't even mention the VERS data, and I didn't even think about that. And then when I'm watching certain news organizations, Fox, and they'll be the first ones to say for 5,000 to 6,000. Like, are you kidding? That's misinformation. That's kind of the new buzzword, misinformation. In this community, if you want information, go to trusted sources. Your pastors, CDC, or quite frankly me. I like to think I know a lot of people. I'm an Omega through our organization, or through, quite frankly, through just touching base with Lisa. I will take the time to sit down with you, and anyone at this panel, to just educate you on what's real, and what's fake news. What's real and what's fake news. Dr. Hawkins, did you have any comments?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, Ms. Washington, Dr. Washington, Ms. Backer, I want to thank you guys immensely for taking the time to communicate with your community about what we're really dealing with. We have gotten so much attention and so much distraction placed on the wrong thing. We're talking about a condition that we have protection against. People keep wanting to say, oh, but we haven't been cured of COVID. And I don't think that's our goal. We're trying to help you recognize, I want to protect you from this condition. So when we talk about the vaccine, and I've actually been on several of these panels, I've talked to several patients in the office, I talk to people at the grocery store, I talk to people at my son's games. When we talk about what is this vaccine, guys, imagine the entire world shut down. Every scientific and clinical mind was completely focused on this vaccine. Imagine the grand idea that is. the smartest people in the world, completely no other distractions. All they had to think about was how can we get something to protect us against that vaccine? Put that into perspective. Okay, yeah, they came up with a vaccine in 6 months. Like, that's the purpose of what it was, because it was that big of a deal. Two, imagine that the COVID vaccine is like a suitcase. And I've used this analogy and patients seem to like it, so I'll give it to you guys. It's a suitcase. In that suitcase, there isn't anything important. There's no clothes, there's no toiletries, there's nothing. It's just an empty suitcase. The way the body recognizes viruses, is it recognizes the little spokes that are on the outside. You guys have seen the pictures of COVID. It's got that little pyramid or triangular object that sticks out on the outside. Our bodies can recognize just that part on the outside. And when we see that part on the outside, it either, number one, we bring it in our system, or number two, we have these little, like, this army of cells that can fight it off. And that's all antibodies are, little armies of cells in your body that as soon as they recognize, nope, that's an enemy, they fight it. They kick it out of the body. It doesn't mean that it hasn't gotten into your system, because obviously that's part of how they recognize it. So people can get COVID, but are they dying from COVID? Are they in severe ICU beds because of COVID, in severe medical condition because of COVID? No. And when I talk to patients like that and explain, they're like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. Like, I'm going to get exposed to COVID because I got to go to work every day. I'm an OBGYN. People are having babies. People need surgery. I'm going to be around this virus. But because I'm vaccinated with not one but 2 doses, because I got Moderna, I am going to be safe because my body recognizes it. It said, oh, I recognize this, and knows how to fight it off. And just a point of clarification, I currently work in Indianapolis. And because I'm one of the doctors in my practice that has the opportunity to do so, I applied for privileges at the Kokomo Hospital so that if they needed assistance with the OBGYNs, guys, we are running our doctors all over the place in all different types of specialties. So if they needed help, I could come to Kokomo and help, and I'm already credentialed, I'm privileged, like there won't be any extra issues involved. So that's just to explain why no one can call an office in Kokomo and make an appointment with me. I just wanted to make sure I explain that. But from a female reproductive health perspective, we have been told that COVID causes infertility. Trust me, I'm up all hours of the day and not delivering babies. I don't know what kind of infertility is caused, but this vaccine is not causing infertility. Number 2, it's increasing people's chance of getting endometriosis. We don't know where endometriosis comes from. So whoever put that data out there just pulled that out of a tree somewhere. We have no idea. There's a healthy amount of people that are like, well, my body's going through other changes and I don't know where it came from. Only thing that's changed is I had the COVID vaccine. You know, take it back to base health. Are you exercising? Do you have a healthy diet? Do you drink adequate amounts of water a day? These are things that everybody's bodies needs. And I would gander to say not everybody's doing them the way they need to. So to be perfectly honest, to be perfectly fair, and to be perfectly factual, we do not have the data to support any of these claims. And because of that, I want you guys to know that the first people who got vaccinated were healthcare providers. I'm gonna say it again, health care providers, the people who the system could not lose. We could not get rid of all of our doctors and nurses and first responders. These are the people you have to have, right? So if the government was gonna create a vaccine that was gonna kill people, you would not give it to the people who are supposed to be helping you. And out of full respect, I know we live a lot of our lives on these phones. They own us, they control us. I can't tell you how many times, I'm embarrassed to say it, I have left my house, turned around and came back to get my cell phone. But I live on my cell phone, right? Social media platforms, they consume us. You know, a lot of people for Lent give up social media and they're like, oh my God, I had so many more hours in a day. I read a book I didn't know. And then what happens after Lent? They go right back to social media. Use these things as entertainment. That's what it's meant for. It is not meant to be your only source of information. I have a full, I have a page, I search, I find things out, it makes me laugh, I share things with friends. I know what it's for. I can't tell you I waste less time because I'm not like different than anybody else. I waste too much time on it. But I also don't let that become the final word. And like Dr. Washington said, I prayed about it. I said, God, I want to make sure that I'm not getting blinded by my desire to get my son back to school and get him out of this house. Let this let this vaccine be something that's really helpful to our country, right? And I feel like God answered our prayers, and He continues to do so, and He's doing it with evidence. Like He's showing us, like, yes, the Delta variant is making a spike, but there's plenty of people that are vaccinated. And you ask these hospitals, are the patients coming in vaccinated? And 95 or 90+% of them are not vaccinated. The people who are getting sick, the people who are in ICUs. So listen to the data, find a reliable source that you believe in, and please don't let that be Facebook. Please don't let that be Instagram. Please don't let that be TikTok. Oh my goodness. While there are intelligent people on those platforms, they are also not the final say. Go to a reputable source, get the information that you need, talk to your healthcare providers. Guys, that's what we're here for. I spent a lot of time in school so that I could gain some knowledge so that when when a patient walked in the office, I maybe look like them, or I could speak their language, or I could talk like them. Se habla español. Yo puedo hablar español por todas las pacientes porque es necesario. Those patients need to know, hey, look, I can understand what you're saying. All that goes to say two things. One, it is your healthcare, and ultimately you have to make that decision. Two, don't make that decision with bad information.
Can we just turn this down a little bit, brother? Just turn it down a little bit. The reason why we're here, ladies and gentlemen, is for you to ask questions yourselves, okay? I'd like to thank Pastor Brown, Pastor Anderson, Bishop Glenn, Pastor Carson, Lady Tarita Brown, the Omega Phi Psi chapter that's here, Q-Dog, the Carbon Community Center. So we're here to, if you have any questions of anything, just come and ask the doctors. Just come up. What's your name, hon? Alicia Glenn. Okay, go ahead.
Being that received the Johnson & Johnson, and the jokes is going around that they couldn't even get powder right. And I know that it's only like 66%, 67% effective. Would it be wrong for me to go and try to get the other shots, or am I okay with the Johnson & Johnson? Because I was thinking about going to get the Moderna to try to make myself more effective.
Yeah. So right now, the FDA has not approved boosters for use yet. I think they were discussing it yesterday in an ACIP meeting, which is like their vaccine committee. I think they will be in our future, but they haven't cleared it yet. So right now, sites are not technically allowed to give you another vaccine if you've already had one. Now, they are looking at especially people that are immunocompromised getting a booster first. That's who they will probably prioritize: people who've had solid organ transplants, people on chemotherapy, people on certain drugs for their medications for their lupus, their rheumatoid arthritis. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is still very effective at preventing hospitalization and death. And that is what we're looking at with these breakthrough cases. Yes, like I said, everybody's hearing about these breakthrough cases. And the numbers on the Johnson & Johnson are slightly less than the other two vaccines. Some people do question that because of the way it was brought out. Johnson & Johnson basically came out into a bigger storm because the COVID rates were so much higher when Johnson & Johnson was released. When the other two were studied, there wasn't as higher a volume of COVID cases. So some people dispute those percentages, and in a lot of cases, those are averages. So what I would say is that you've got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Unvaccinated, okay? And I would feel comfortable in that. I think there are still things you can do. You wear a mask in public, you avoid crowded indoor spaces, all the things we were doing before, because I would point out with this Delta variant, to put in perspective to realize that it is as contagious as chickenpox. So all of those that are my age and older probably remember having chickenpox when we were little kids. And so it's that contagious now. But I think having had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you can feel comfortable that you do have protection. You definitely have protection against hospitalization, against death from COVID, but you just still have to keep in mind those other things and then be patient and wait, because I do think boosters are coming. We just need more guidance from the FDA on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Glenn. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to ask the doctor? I'll come to you, sir. What's your name?
Name's Tim Clark. My question is that what about being on other medications? Is there any information about it reacting if you or not reacting? You know, if you're on certain medications, other antibiotics or things like that.
Let me see if I can help you with this, brother. Without breaking HIPAA, I got to presume you have a type of chronic lung condition. So you're on oxygen. I presume you may or may, every now and then you may take prednisone if your lungs are acting up, which is a steroid, and you may be on some inhalers. You may be on blood pressure medicines. You may be diabetic. To your question, it's very, very individualized. There are very few instances where I worry about giving the vaccine to my patient. I don't know anything about your history, but unless you tell me you have significant immunosuppressants or you're for organ transplant, autoimmune conditions, there are very few instances where I would even give it a second thought. That conversation, though I don't know you, I'm not your personal physician, he or she should sit down and chat with you and reaffirm, sir, getting the vaccine will not interfere with your current medical regimen. Of course, there are exceptions, but even on some of my immunosuppressant patients, there are very few. I can only think of one that I did not give the vaccine to. So given what you've given myself, Dr. Backer, and Lisa, I don't have any concerns about you getting the vaccine.
This is Dr. Hawkins. Can I add something really quickly? Speaking specifically to people who are not good candidates for the vaccine. I have a patient, she's relatively healthy, in her 70s, came to my office, and I felt like she is a poster child to help people to kind of understand like who should or shouldn't get it. She's pretty spry. She had her first and second vaccines already planned. She knew when she was going to be getting them. She received her vaccine and she sat down. As you know, they make you sit for 15 minutes. This beautiful young woman, within 5 minutes of getting her vaccine, developed shortness of breath. She became sweaty. She became slightly disoriented. They knew. She was in an ER within 10 minutes. They took her right to the emergency room, right to the front of the line. She was given medicine to kind of help the response of the vaccine. And she is well today. Now, her doctor, and I also encouraged her, you are not a candidate for the second shot. Absolutely not. So that's the kind of person, that's the reasoning behind the way that we're doing our vaccinations. So when you ask us like who can't get it, like our hands are tied because like anybody except the people who it's going to harm them. And we know that there are so few people like her that had such a severe reaction to getting the vaccine. That's what I just wanted to add. That's kind of like that example that I always want to like bring out to people so they can think that way. Thank you guys.
Is that people that have conditions where they're on medications that they might be immunosuppressed means that you really, really need the vaccine because you're at higher risk of having a bad course from getting COVID, and you are a little less likely to get good protection from it. You know, if you're on immunosuppressive drugs like prednisone or things for rheumatoid arthritis, the thing to realize, you really, really need that vaccine, but you might not get the full effect of it because of your medications. So you still have to be careful. So.
Thank you, Dr. Backer. We have a question here from Pastor Brown from Pastor's Corner.
First of all, y'all need to get something to wipe this microphone off with. To me, for real. I don't want to touch it. There you go. Thank you. Let's give it up for Dante. Brother Dante Rogers. This is a different question. And I am Pastor Brown of Refreshing Springs Church of God in Christ. A little different with regards to just a medical situation. But we need help dispelling some additional bad information that's getting out. I've had 3 members contact me, and they went to some of our local drugstores, pharmacies, to get their vaccine. And these were 2 people of color. They told them, oh, this is going to make you real sick. This is going to hurt you. You really need to think about this. And they called me, said, Pastor, you've been telling us to get the vaccine. I go to get it, and the pharmacy tells me, they start telling me all of the negative stuff. And so I left. So what I told them to do was to contact their doctor, or now that I know Ms. Becker in your position, I'm going to have them contact you. So for anyone that has been in this room that has gotten that information from one of the pharmacies, I've had 3 people contact me. And the first one, I didn't pay much attention to it. The second one, it kind of alarmed me. Well, the third one, I didn't really know what to do. So I told them to go see their doctor. But this is a great concern for me. If we're telling them to go to the pharmacy, and then the pharmacist or whoever is administering the vaccination is giving them information that is scaring them, well, we've already got, our people are already scared to take it, and then they're telling them don't take it because it's going to make them sick. And then they told one young lady, she went back for her second shot, she said, oh, you're really going to get sick from this one. And I said, no, you're not, baby. I said, you may get a headache, you may get this, but you'll be fine. We need some help.
I'll tell you that I volunteered, I think, with the health department, maybe starting in February, from February until about May, and I've been helping at second a little bit. And I can tell you that the health department's protocol is very different because I got my shot over actually at St. Joe. The health department has a wonderful program when they give their vaccines. And it's unfortunate that the other establishments don't have the same protocol. And I don't know, it's like anything. You can go to one doctor and love the way that they explain everything to you, and you go to another doctor and they don't give you any information. So we have really tried to get information out about the COVID vaccine because it is, for some people, it is a very, it's a hard decision to come to. And if you have someone telling you information like that, it turns you the complete opposite direction. So that is something that certainly my organization can help with. If you need us to come to your church, I can speak for my organization. I'm not going to speak for the health department because I know how busy they are. But we certainly can come out and talk to you about the COVID vaccine. And so I'll get most of them. I think most of the ministers may have my information, but if not, I'll make sure they get that.
All right. What's your name, sir?
JR.
All right, you got a question? Okay.
Are there any alternatives to the situation as far as, anything?
Are you referring to alternative forms of protection?
Sure.
To do anything besides the vaccine?
Sure.
No. Dr. Becker alluded to things that you can do, but we all can do to get us our immune system in order, exercising, appropriate diet, and the such. But there's no other way. This is something that has to be done.
Dr. Washington, I would also challenge that if you really want to avoid COVID, avoid people. stay in your house. Don't go anywhere. When your groceries get delivered to your home, because you're not going to be allowed to go get them, wipe them down with sanitizer and leave them sitting out for 10 to 15 minutes. You basically have to turn into a hermit or a recluse and stay inside and away from all people. If that is acceptable for you, you can ride the COVID wave out without the vaccine and hope that if another one comes back, you'll be fine. But I think that's what people aren't understanding. That's what we're going back to if we're not protecting the population.
Variant is 50 to 60% more contagious than the previous one. Again, this is as contagious as chickenpox. So think about how many people made it through before we had a chickenpox vaccine. How many people made it through childhood without getting chickenpox? Nobody. So the thing with Delta is to realize is that eventually all of us will be exposed to this, and we're all going to get immunity to it one way or the other. You get the vaccine or you get the disease. It's now endemic. That's what I mean. It is endemic.
So the vaccine, you'll still get it, basically.
You can, but you're much less likely to end up in the hospital or die from it. And like I said, right now, 96% of all the people in the hospital right now in the United States are unvaccinated.
Okay, so
it's much safer.
Stop transmission then.
It will eventually once we all have immunity. So once all of us either get it or get the vaccine, what we'll see is we'll probably see little bursts of it like flu, like RSV, which is a respiratory syncytial virus. So it is here to stay, but eventually it may become something more like a common cold, which there are coronaviruses that cause the cold. So that is the goal. We're not going to get rid of this.
Okay.
It's here.
So then if you have the vaccine and you get it, you can still pass it down to other family members.
You can, although there actually is new data that says you can still spread it, but you don't shed it as long. So even though you got the vaccine, you get COVID, you do shed virus and can spread it to other people, but not as long as someone who's unvaccinated. Because you have the vaccine, your body recognizes it, starts to fight it off, so you don't shed that virus as long as somebody who's never had the vaccine, their body has no idea what this is that's replicating in their body, so it's much slower to fight it off. So.
And as far as I understand, you can't sue the government because it's a part of the emergency authorization.
Well, there is actually a fund for injury caused by vaccine. I don't know a whole lot about it, but there actually is a federal fund for people that believe they were harmed by a vaccine. So there is a way to go through a process if you think you've been harmed by a federal vaccine.
Yeah, the Compensation Act.
Yes.
Is that's what you're referring to?
Yes.
Which gives you about $250,000 at the most if you're able to prove it. I don't think my family members are worth $250,000, but worth a little bit more than that. But
absolutely.
How about you said there was no alternatives. I challenge that. You ever heard of the alkaline lifestyle, alkaline-based lifestyle?
No. You
have? Yes, I have.
By which this lifestyle has cured lupus, cancer, all kinds of different illnesses. And I just find it interesting that we don't offer a different way, a different plan when we are uncertain of this COVID vaccine that's been made up within a year.
And am I interrupting you, sir?
Go ahead.
I would be more than happy. I have. Just to let you guys know, what he's referring to is what we consider under complementary medicine. I'm all for complementary medicine, as long as there's science and literature behind it. And there is some literature behind autoimmune conditions. There's something called seronegative, a group of conditions called seronegative spondyloarthropathies, like psoriatic arthritis. and some other conditions. I'll be more than happy to chat with you about it. Our only concern is that we don't have any basic study science based on that lifestyle where your body's more of in an alkaline state, more so than a neutral state. And because of time, I don't want to go into that, but I'm more than happy to chat with you if you have the time and talk to you about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up to them
Right,
because
no.
it's maybe a different aspect that they haven't seen yet or heard.
Right,
but it's a natural one, and that one will definitely keep you out of harm's way.
Right. And I acknowledge what you're saying. My only concern, young man, is that I want it to be studied, and it's got to be an individual decision, because there are people who are pushing ivermectin, IV vitamin D, who are pushing Plaquenil. Unfortunately, that was based on some of it was complementary medicine, or just the evidence wasn't there. So I hear you. I respect what you're saying about other possibilities, but as it is now, when I'm in the trenches, I don't feel comfortable offering them that because I don't have the scientific evidence to back it up. But I am more than happy to.
So the scientific evidence part, you said that nobody died from the COVID vaccine. I count that as a lie. When you mentioned it.
Right.
When you mentioned it, everybody clapped their hands about it. Well, not everybody, but some people clapped their hands about it, right? That's not true at all. People have died from the vaccine.
No,
and not only that, I do have one last thing, and now I'm going to go. But will this vaccine cover the Delta variation?
Yes, it does.
Not quite. It does, but not quite as well. Because the Delta has mutated to, and also people that have had COVID before may not necessarily have as good natural antibody protection against Delta because it's changed in the same way that the flu changes every year. So if you haven't had a similar strain of flu and don't have natural immunity to it from having it before, you could get that strain again. And I would say there are 3 deaths that are very likely related to one of the vaccines. If you heard about the cerebral sinus thrombosis. So there are cases. The problem we get into is, again, like I said, a lot of times you don't know that it's very difficult to prove that the vaccine caused a death or didn't cause a death because we're very complicated organisms and there are lots of things that can cause death. So it takes a long time sometimes to reach that conclusion. I mean, and it's frustrating a lot of people. Science can be very slow. It takes a long time to gather this data, and that's why it keeps changing. New data keeps coming in. The thing to realize about Delta variant, and if we don't slow it, we will get a new variant again. And that's why I say this is endemic now. But if it continues to spread at this rate, we could get a new variant that is more fatal and less likely to respond.
Then we'll need a new vaccine for that one.
Yeah, we could. And that is a very real
possibility. And where is the line stop? Where do we stop?
It doesn't. And that's why I said this is here with us to stay. And we have to deal with it as it comes. And we've been dealing with this for a long time now. I know Lance can attest to that too. Yeah, and Lisa.
Go ahead, brother. What's your name, brother?
The alkaline food style, that's natural. It's no medicine. Well, it is medicine to the body, but it's just plants. You look into that, you see that there is no repercussions to eating plants. God said himself in his own Bible that the plants are to heal the people.
Okay, brother. Well, you know what? We're here to discuss it, right? You got your, you know what I mean? We're gonna definitely table that. But like the doctor said, a healthy lifestyle is also what's necessary. Dr. Hawkins, you have something to add?
I do. I would like to add something really quickly. We spoke about the last time our country has seen a pandemic earlier, and that was 1918 and the Spanish flu. Does anybody know when they felt like the Spanish flu had died down and had gone away and they were safe again? It was 1920. They did not have the science that we have right now. And it still took them 2 years for people to feel safe again after having that. We're only at what, like 18 months, 19 months back at this? So yes, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I do not want to disrespect that. Why is it continuing to come back? It keeps coming around. It's because that's what vaccines are. They're little organisms that are trying to live. And right now, we're the ones that they're targeting. And so if we don't keep them out of us, there's no way that it's going to really go away and stay away.
Your name, young lady?
My name is Jetney. I actually work as a nurse. I work in ICU here at the hospital. I will just give you all my perspective of what I have seen since COVID popped up on the scene. It's not pretty. Even if you come in, yes, you can survive COVID. You very well can. And even in that, you still have a long road. There's a young man in the hospital now, in his 30s, my age. He's been in the hospital so long with COVID that we have taken him out of isolation, which means we don't gown up anymore. We don't put on no gowns. We don't put on our elastomeres or our goggles because he has been there since July. Double chest tubes. We go to move him. His oxygen drops. We turn his oxygen back up, tell him don't move, don't breathe, don't blink, just concentrate on breathing. Because we try to keep him from going on the ventilator. Because when he goes on the ventilator, he won't come off. I have had to look at patients who have grabbed my hands and looked me in my eyes and say, I'm scared, don't leave me, pray for me. Because I'm telling them that if you don't go on a ventilator right this very second, you won't make it. And to know that when I put them on a ventilator, they're still gonna die. That I'm gonna have to call the family and say, hey, you have to come in now, not tomorrow, not in 2 hours, but right now, because your loved one is crashing. We are doing everything we can to keep them alive, but they're crashing, and you need to get here to say your goodbyes from the doorway. You can't come in because they have COVID. You have to stay on the outside and pray to God that we can bring them back. I have had patients call my mom, call my dad, tell them I love them, tell them I will take care of the kids for me, and as soon as they hang up, we go to intubate, they've died. I've had patients who with COVID is it doesn't just attack your lungs, it attacks your whole body. Your liver starts failing, your kidneys start failing. Kidneys fail, you can't get rid of any toxins in your body, which means you're gonna end up on dialysis 3 days a week, maybe every day, until we can get that toxins out of your body. Not only that, you get a stroke, from it. We tell your family, we're doing all these things. And most of the people are unvaccinated. When they come in, this happens to them. We had a patient who came in, he's in his 90s, fully vaccinated, walked out, he lived. Patient, 50 years old, no underlying symptoms, unvaccinated. What are we doing? Telling him he has to lay on his belly with a CPAP mask on, which we call the BiPAP, 100% oxygen. Lay on his belly and don't move, because we do not want to put him on a ventilator, because if we do, he will not come off. What happened to him? He got blood clots all in his leg, from his knee down to his toes. We had to emergently ship him to Indianapolis to hopefully keep his leg. As a frontline worker who was dealing with this every day, we are tired. All we're asking is for our community to get the vaccine. Something so simple, and it's free, can save your life, can save your loved one's life, can save your kids. I have kids that I send to school, and I worry that because I interact with non-vaccinated COVID patients on a daily, that I may bring this home to my family, and to my husband, and to my grandmother, and to my children my children can't get a vaccine. They're under 12. They can't get a vaccine. But I go in every day. So do my coworkers go in every day. We're picking up extra shifts because we're short-staffed, because we're full. So we come in day after day after day, gown up, put our lives at risk to make sure that y'all are safe, that y'all don't die, that you were able to make it out of the hospital and go home to your loved ones. We're the ones that are feeling the calls when your loved ones can't come in the hospital because now we're back on COVID visitor restrictions. We're the ones that are feeling the calls, setting up the video chats. We're the ones that are gowning up to go into those COVID rooms when your loved one is dying so they don't die alone. We're the ones that are holding the hands of your loved ones when they're dying because you can't be there with them. It's us who are sitting there who are wiping the tears because this person knows they're dying and says, don't leave me. I don't want to die alone. And we're the ones that says, we won't. No one dies alone. We sacrifice so much just so that, because no one wants to get vaccinated. It's not fully FDA regulated. Does it really matter? We eat McDonald's. Some of y'all be smoking and drinking. I'm tatted up. So clearly I really, I got the vaccine. I'm tatted up. So that's not FDA regulated either. So whatever. Some of us are taking flat tummy tea. That's not FDA regulated. We're taking vitamins, supplements. But we run out and do that on a daily basis. But something that is free, something that takes 5 minutes out of your day to get the shot. Will you possibly have some side effects from it? Yes, it's like anything. I got it. I woke up the next day for my second shot. I had a light fever. I had a low-grade fever. I had the chills, the body aches. My husband had nothing. I said, you don't feel anything? He says, I'm great. I'm like, oh, I'm cold. But I got it because it is so important. I don't want to go back in the house. I want to be locked down. I want to be able to go outside and, enjoy the fresh air and enjoy being around people and not have to look at people like they don't have their mask on. They stressing me out, got my heart rate all up, causing me about to have a panic attack. We don't want that. And from the healthcare workers, from our standpoint, from our frontline workers, just know that we are doing all that we can to keep everyone safe and to just for everyone to come home. Like right now, even yesterday, had a patient, COVID, unvaccinated, in her 70s, crashing, blood pressure in the toilet. We're putting her on 3 different medications to get her blood pressure up because without that blood pressure, she's gonna die. We're trying everything we can. She doesn't wanna be intubated, so we can only go so far. We're calling the family members like, what do you want done in the event that your loved one, like, this is the work, what can we do? We literally just had 2 patients die, and to the point where they had been there for so long that we all cried. We literally had to take a break because we literally cried because they had died, because we knew them for so long. So, if anything, I'm begging and pleading with my community. This is my community. I'm born and raised and grew up here. I'm asking for you all, please, to get vaccinated. If you're not, please become vaccinated.
Thank you. We have some questions. We have some questions from Pastor Anderson from Facebook online, okay?
All right. This is from someone who is watching online. They asked this question. There are a lot of doctors who talk about the potential side effects on well-known shows, national television. Every medication has a side effect. It seems that those side effects are not talked about. Let's talk about it. Tell us more about the mRNA. Is it safe? Isn't this the first time Moderna has been given to a mass number of people? And has it been studied to cause long-term effects on our natural immune system? And then another question, there's a lot of questions coming from Facebook. I just have to pick some. It would be, as someone who has had COVID, my breathing is still severely compromised. What else can be done to bring my breathing back to a normal stage? Those are the 2 questions.
All right. Dr. Backer?
So with the mRNA, so this is a technology that actually has been around for a while, at least since 2014. They've been studying it. Some thoughts have been to use it actually to deliver adjuvant chemotherapy to patients. So mRNA technology is not new. It's just that this is the first time it's been used in a vaccine. The other thing to realize is that mRNA cannot enter your nucleus. So all of your DNA is in a small part of your cell. The mRNA is just in the rest of the cell. It can't get to the nucleus without 3 different steps, enzymes, it doesn't have. So it cannot change your DNA. It's incapable of doing that. Also to realize that all of us have our mRNA. It's part of our genetic code. We use it to copy genetic code and make proteins. So we all are filled with mRNA. So our bodies are used to it. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have mRNA. So, and also that the vaccine itself, that mRNA stays in your body for about 2 or 3 days only. It gets broken down very quickly once it reaches the cells. What stays forever is your body's reaction to it. Maybe not forever, but ideally what sticks around is your body's reaction, your body's immune system learning to recognize what that mRNA was delivering, which was a protein of the spike protein, basically. So mRNA is not new. It's new in this vaccine, yes, and it's safe, and it doesn't stay in your body very long. And like I said, we all are filled with mRNA, so it's not something to be afraid of.
Just to add on to that, you'll hear a lot of buzzwords around the vaccine. mRNA, the two first vaccines, the Moderna, the Pfizer, were made based on mRNA technology. The J&J was not. Just to add on to what Emily was saying. To the second question, and I want to expound on that a little. The second question from Facebook in terms of complications of COVID. I mean, I'm using that as a buy-in to another reason why you should get the vaccine and not get COVID, and then the complications. We're dealing with the complication of COVID, long COVID syndrome, something called immobilization syndrome / IPPN. It's a fancy word for idiopathic polyperipheral neuropathy. These patients are just not quite right. Functionally, in some patients who've had COVID and developed long-term complications, we're learning about this long term. The first thing we worry about most acutely are blood clots. Patients who've had COVID acutely, there's a very, very, very high risk of getting a blood clot, either in the leg that goes into the lung or vice versa. Patients with underlying pulmonary problems, I have seen that they've gotten worsening pulmonary symptoms. To the person who was on Facebook, to improve their functional outcome, that's going to be an individual plan that person has to do with their physician. They need to chat with he or her to come up with a plan, which typically involves some type of physical, occupational therapy, and sometimes respiratory therapy. And so it can be a long haul. This is not the flu. This is not the cold. Unfortunately, some of these patients are sicker than heck. And as primary care providers, we've never taken care of people who are this sick. You'll hear the term long COVID syndrome, patients who are not quite right in terms of cognitively speaking. Once again, on a day-by-day basis. We don't even really know how to treat those. I've had several patients who have had to do something called MMSEs. They're called many mental status exams because the patients have lost some cognitive skills. Typically middle 40s, 50s, professionals, and they've had to take long-term disability. That we don't even know I don't say we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to treat them individually, but there are lots of complications from this, which is another reason why even deal with this. Get the vaccine.
Okay, we do have one more question. Mrs. Washington, you have something to say?
I was just going to say that there are, like the long haul syndrome. Remember, I'll just tell you from a nursing perspective that the recovery is tough. And to avoid some of those things, I strongly encourage people to do that because some of the after effects of COVID, so, some of the things, I think, the two doctors here described it perfectly. So think of the cognitive things that people have to possibly deal with. There's also some neurological things that we talk about, and also just the ability to be able to move and do for yourself. There's a lot of, we talk about the respiratory involvement and the lung involvement. People have such a hard time, you know, just doing their day-to-day activities. So you may recover from it, but I had a gentleman come in to see me who was a very active individual, and he wanted to just mow his lawn, and he couldn't even mow his lawn. I mean, he had a hard time just even taking it out of the garage. So think about, I always encourage people, think about how some of these chronic conditions, how they're going to affect your ability to live your life as you are going to. And sometimes those are some of the things as you think about the pros and cons of, do I get this vaccine or don't I get this vaccine? Think about the effect that it will have on you, your family, and the people that you love. And I know the nurse from St. Joe, she did an excellent job. Nurses and doctors who have had to put in all of these hours. I have not been a bedside nurse for about 20, 25 years, and I did work on an oncology floor. And it is awful to have to watch someone die. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but when there are avoidable situations, it is devastating to the people who have to take care of them. And the nurses and the doctors and the EMTs, all the bedside people, this has been a long haul for them. And for some of them, I was a nurse manager. I never had to deal with anything like this, but some nurses, I don't know how much longer they think they'll be able to continue with this. So we have to kind of think of who's going to be left to take care of us also.
Okay, we have a question from Bishop Glenn from Pastor's Corner. One thing I can say is this, Dr. Hawkins, I have a question. No matter how much you work out, right? No matter how much water you drink, you stop smoking, you don't do anything like that. Will this affect you the same as it would affect the person who does those things? That's one question I have.
So to best explain getting as healthy as possible, that's something we should all be striving for. Obviously, an excellent, I mean, impeccably excellent healthy diet is great because it puts all those cells that are so thirsty and needy and wanting all these things that we don't give it regularly in an American lifestyle and American diet, it gives them those things they need. So yeah, your scale starts out, near 100, like this is where you are. But like all of us are continuing to repeat, this virus wants to dismantle that system. So even when you come in at 100%, you have strong lungs, your heart is beating well, your kidneys are filtering well, your liver is getting rid of toxins well, your intestines, let's be honest, everything's involved. Your intestines are working, perfectly. Even in that perfect instance, this virus is going to find a way to sneak in, to get into that cell, like Dr. Becker said, get into that nucleus. That's the important part. That's the brain, right? The center of the cell. And once it gets in there, it replicates itself and then it spreads throughout your body. So while some people get loss of taste, loss of smell, like fatigue, low-grade fever, we just heard that amazing and very, very brave nurse say, and other people are watching their bodies die system by system. And we know that there are things that we take into our bodies that aren't good. Number one, the quantity of food that we eat. Overeating and obesity has become such an epidemic in this country, and we can't quite put our fingers on how to fix it. Eat less, exercise more. Like, we know what these things are, and we feel the same way about this vaccine. Hey, we know we got this bad virus out there. It is targeting people. It is causing long-term effects. It is killing people. Get the vaccine and protect yourself. That's how simple it feels to us. So when you ask me, how can I make myself as healthy as I can so I can avoid COVID? It doesn't ring true because, yeah, you should be doing that not to avoid COVID. You should be doing that to live a long and healthy life.
my daughter recognizes that I'm 77 years old. I'm Bishop Charles Glenn, I'm the pastor of the Fountain of Life Worship Center. I am also lucky to serve as the president of the 10-Point Coalition of Kokomo, and Dr. Lance Washington is my doctor. The reason that I came today, I wanted to ask, because I'm supposed to be here, but I wanted to ask, why does it seem that the Delta strain and the Delta Plus strain seem to be pertinent among the African American community?
Bishop Glenn, I just want to make sure I understand your question, because when you look at the, and we could look at, I'm going to actually have Lisa speak to some of this in terms of why do bad things medically happen to brown people, and that's a separate talk within itself. I mean, there's socio-economic conditions, there are conditions that we have, chronic diabetes, a higher incidence of hypertension, high incidence of coronary disease. And so unfortunately, as with most things, and it's just not African Americans, it's Native Americans, it's Hispanics, it's unfortunately because of socio-economic, historical, there are some barriers which still need to be broken down that do affect us. I don't know if that's answering your question. The other things that we can speak to are like access. I mean, which is why we're doing this. I've been actually, and it hasn't been necessarily my practice, because the brown patients in my practice, they know how I am. I sit on them and make them do this. And so, it's been more so, even if you look at the percentages, it's been my Caucasian patients. And unfortunately, I can link a lot of it, unfortunately, to political affiliations. And I'm just going to come out and say that. I wanted to make this CDC based, but I'm like, where are you absolutely getting this information? My African American patients will come to me, and they tend to be Christian, blah, blah, blah. We can pray about it and say, listen, this is what you need to do. But so it's not the resistance, it's access and wanting to know. And so to the bigger picture of why it's hitting us, my question was, why not? It doesn't surprise me, unfortunately, but we as a group, as a socio-economic group, we still have work to do. We still eat terribly as brown people. We don't exercise. We'll go to church, but after church, what's the meeting? Fried chicken. I mean, come on. I mean, and I say that a little in tongue in cheek, because to Dr. Hawkins, we should be doing this anyway. If you're my patient, you know I'm going to say three things: G, F, E. God is always first.
Yes, you do.
Family and exercise.
Yes, you do.
And so we do that. We do that. That's an equalizer right there. So this isn't something we can blame on the government. This isn't anything we can blame on anybody else. We as a people need to do better.
Yeah, Indiana is kind of in a unique spot when we talk about minority health. My husband has often asked me, why don't other states have a minority health alliance? And Willie Stroman had this job prior to me, but there was a group of legislators who saw the health of Indiana minorities, and they were able to secure some special funding to fund us. Now, when we talk about why are there disparities in minority health, some of that is historical. It goes back to, you know, some of the things that blacks just didn't have access to. Now, when they formed the Minority Health Alliance in Indiana, we started it with health. We have lots of other things that we work on. They have a whole advocacy branch there. So we go down to the state legislators. We talk with them about what types of things we see in this community that we want to work on. So when we talk about health, why do we see COVID particularly hitting African Americans? Well, one, we know they asked us, is this a access problem in Howard County? No, it's not an access because we had, the health department had huge clinics. And as I was out there, I did not see a lot of brown people coming out. So then it became a question of, is it hesitancy? So we knew it was hesitancy. And why was it hesitancy? Probably based on a lot of things: government mistrust, history of just mistrust of health providers. So what I would say to everyone sitting in this room is, if you have a healthcare provider that you feel that you can't trust, you can't ask them a question about the safety and why COVID vaccine is necessary, you need to be able to do that.
Ms. Washington, Ms. Washington.
Yes.
The last report I got from Howard County, Indiana, the minority report said that 5.3% of people like me had had their COVID testing.
That's true. That's
the
true.
last report I got from Alton, Illinois, from a bishop who had lived there, said that 19% of the people there had had theirs.
Yes.
The last report I got from Dallas County, Arkansas, where I was born, said that 23% of the people there had got there, and none of those people have a minority like you have a minority health
exactly.
thing. So
what's the problem?
Yeah.
So we have, I am active with NAACP, IBE. I have touched I touch most of the minority organizations in this town. So when 10 Point Alliance asked if we could do this event, we were more than happy to do this event, because our question is, why is it that that we have a sizable portion of the minority community in this county that does not want to have this vaccine? Now, we say historically, when we look at that 5%, we know that historically there is a reason why we have disparities. Some of that, as my husband said, it goes to socioeconomic problems. It goes to blacks and Hispanics. Historically, they did not make the money. They were not able to be college educated to make more money. So they had to buy things that were not as healthy. And you look at your neighborhoods, where can you buy, what's the access to food? Sometimes they don't have access to fresh vegetables. And they even had that problem in Indianapolis. You know, we've done lots of projects. So I guess the question is, why do we have that low number? And I think the ministers of 10 Point, they might be able to give a better answer, because we assume, and they always say assumption is a bad thing, but the assumption is that there's a mistrust of the vaccine.
Sister Washington, are we talking about the same thing? Are we talking about the same thing?
Yes, your question was, why is it, why?
We're talking about people having taken the vaccine.
Right.
What does that have to do with them buying food?
No, one second, Bishop Glenn, did you say people, you wanted to know why the percentage was so
low?
Was that,
right.
Was that your question?
Right.
Right.
And what she was, what, I don't want to speak for my wife. Her point being.
That's right, take up for your wife, Doc.
No, I do. I'm going to tell you.
You better take up for her.
No, you got a point. She's putting it all in a larger perspective in terms of historically. I do not dispute the numbers between Illinois or in Texas. I can't, because trust me, I'm as frustrated. I know those numbers. But when I look at I can tell you when and not you and your family, when they come in, I'm like, okay, meds or food? Okay, they're gonna go for food. What type of food? What type of food? Healthy food? No, crappy food. And so she's just using that as an example of, I mean, I'm talking about, and then between medicines and then eating. And then I got to give them a free vaccine. Even though it's free, it's not even on their radar. That's the analogy she was trying to make. How do we break through that? I don't know, outside of individual one-on-one conversations. Her organization and myself, where we go to places where we go to, brown people, church, barbershops, historically, I don't want to, that almost sounds stereotypically, but quite frankly, and radio stations, obviously. Social media somewhat, but I myself don't trust social media. For something like this, it's got to be one-on-one. And we hit multiple different barriers, even when brown people are speaking.
Doc, I agree. I don't eat the healthiest. You know I don't eat the healthiest. But I went and got my shots.
Right.
I've had both my shots. You know I've had both my shots. Most of us don't eat the healthiest. But it's free. It's free, people. It's free. Go get the shots. It's free. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that the shot is free. Somebody say I'm too old. I'm 77 years old. I've had both shots. Go get the shots. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to affect your DNA. I heard that the other day. It's going to change your DNA. No, it's not. It's not going to affect your DNA. It's not going to change your blood type. Go get your shot.
I would, as we move on, you have something to say? Ms. Beck, you have a question? Okay. One more question.
So, my name is Essie Foster. You know, it is not widely talked about that children under 12 are succumbing to the virus. I know that they're not eligible now for the vaccine. And now they're headed back to school. So what can we do to protect this population of people?
Very good question.
Yes, they're not eligible for the vaccine. We hope that they will be soon. The things we can do is for everyone who is eligible to get the vaccine, because that's how we protect our children, is we get the vaccine, so hopefully we won't spread it to them. And that's why it's so important.
Can I ask Dr. Hawkins, let me ask you a question, and all the doctors real quick. If I'm unvaccinated and I don't tell anybody, correct? And I go to a house gathering where some of the folks there are vaccinated, some that are wearing masks are unvaccinated. I affect my neighbors or my relatives' children. It's tracked back to me. Don't I deserve to get my butt whooped?
Now, I say this as a mother.
Don't I deserve to get my butt whooped?
Yes.
Should I be legally liable for making that man miss work, making that child sick, and I just came over for a dinner? Shouldn't I have some repercussions?
There currently are no legal ramifications unless it can be shown that you are willfully trying to infect other people. And that's no different than when HIV came out and they felt like men were trying to give it to as many women as possible, and they were then held criminally liable. I think correct. Correct. I do not speak as a practicing lawyer, so I can't go into that. There are legal ramifications for if you intentionally and knowingly attempt to infect someone. I think there was actually a case in Indianapolis, and this was way back last year, where a patient wanted to be seen. The nurse asked her, please, our protocol is put your mask back on, go out to your car, we will call you. The patient pulled her mask down and coughed in that nurse's face. And she did that willfully and intentionally. She was arrested. She was taken to jail by the police. The police were called and she was taken to jail. However, I don't know the outcome of that situation. But in that instance, it was her intent and her will to try and pass this thing that she may or may not have had on. So the question may down the road become, legally speaking, how do we handle these individuals who are being cavalier and reckless and irresponsible with passing this virus along? We haven't quite come across that yet because we're trying to get people to look at it from a public health standpoint. As practitioners, as people who love people, that's why we do this job. We want you to focus on doing what's best for your health.
We're wrapping up at 2, so we only have a few more minutes. But this question comes to the panelists. I am a concerned mother with children who go to school. How should I protect my children? Should I make them wear a mask at school? And how do I protect my family?
I would say absolutely they should be wearing masks at school. As the Howard County Health Department, we have recommended that we follow the CDC's guidelines. We recommend that all K through 12 kids and staff be vaccinated. It is not a requirement that's up to the local school boards. So if you feel like that should be mandatory in schools, I suggest you talk to your local school boards and encourage them to pass that mandatory masking in school through K through 12, because it really can help. And I think with our kids that are not eligible for vaccination yet, that's a very important weapon at protecting our children.
I have a question on that as well, and we're gonna move on to Pastor Carson. If you send your child to school and you want them to wear a mask, and let's say a teacher or some type of guidance counselor says, take your mask off, what should that parent or child do?
That child should say that I am going to wear a mask for my own safety and I will keep it on.
Okay, Pastor Carson.
To my sister beloved, Nurse Washington, to my brother beloved, Dr. Washington, who you and I walked the campus of Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, as we were working on our degrees. To my President Dr. Booker, who we share a seat on the Howard County Health Department Board of Directors. To Dr. Hawkins, to the Pastor's Corner, my colleagues, and 10 Point, my colleagues. I just want to give a quick shout out and thanks for everyone who's had a part in this major meeting. Somebody needs to say amen. Yeah, I don't have a Hammond B3 organ behind me, but somebody ought to, yeah. What great knowledge. And I'm not the wrap-up person. I just want to give a shout out. Now, I'm getting ready to, my sister from the ER, as you gave that impassioned plea, and as I walk the hallways, as I'm getting ready to walk the hallways at Howard Community Hospital in a few minutes in my position as chaplain, to be outside the rooms, to walk through the ICU, and to watch persons who are laboring and languishing because of this situation, it is major. And yes, Evangelist Carson and I, we have our one and done, amen, shots, our Johnson shots. Now, I think I see my bus coming, so I do want to lift up another position as I labor at Apperton Apartments, and she gonna get mad at me, but I'm gonna call Deborah West's name because she's in charge of it. Now, if I don't show back up, you know, go see Debbie because she hurt me. We think about our residents there. and them being impacted. Y'all need to listen, like Bishop Glenn said. Y'all need to listen. Amen. Get that shot if you don't have it. Tell your family, get that shot if you don't have it. Somebody say amen.
All right, doctors, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Nurse Washington, Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Emily Backer, Dr. Lance Washington, registered nurse, Mrs. Lisa Washington. Right in the back right now, you can register to get your shot right now. If you don't have a relationship with a physician, we got 3 right here. I called Nurse Washington a physician as well. The people that were able to put this together, the 10-point coalition of Kokomo, Pastor's Corner, the doctor, the Minority Health, we'd like to say thank you for receiving this information today. Thank you. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to either get a card from the doctors, look on Facebook. We'll put some information as far as getting, because the issue here is it safe for me? I can't answer that. They can. Thank you for coming out. God bless. Have a beautiful day.
If you are still thinking about a shot and not quite there, they are also giving out vaccinations at Second Baptist until 6. And in 3 weeks, they will be having another vaccination clinic down there if you know anybody who would want to get one. And still here, still here.
Okay, so again, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Mr. Willie Stroman, I want to say thank you to him for helping me be here.
Oh, hold on. Dr. Hawkins, can you hear me now? Okay. Listen, I think we're wrapping up. Let me stop 1 second.